Shalom Aleichem everyone, hope everyone had a wonderful, wonderful week. It is Parshas Tzav and Erev Pesach, this Shabbos, so let's try and combine the two. Pesach, we've discussed this before, but it's worth another round. We have a big tzarechim. We have beginning of the Pesach Seder, we start with the Simanim of the Seder, and one of those Simanim is Shulchan Aruch. And Shulchan Aruch is part of the Seder. It's fundamental. The meal that we have is an integral part of the Seder, yet there's an obvious difficulty, and that is then we bench and then we say Hallel, but the first two paragraphs of Hallel are before Shulchan Aruch. So we have a hefsek in the Hallel with the meal. The meal has some kind of central role, otherwise it wouldn't be one of the Simanim, it would just be another Sudas Yantif, yet it breaks up the Hallel. So that's a very big difficulty. And the simple answer is that the meal, the central part of our meal, we don't have it today, unfortunately, we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, but is the Korban Pesach. The Korban Pesach is the part of the Suda that represents the Cheres, that represents the unique quality of this night. And the Korban Pesach, I would suggest, not my suggestion, many others suggested as well, is a paradigmatic Korban Toda. It is the model of Korban Toda. And the very well-known Nitziv in our Parashat Tzav tells us that the Korban Toda is a very, very big Korban and has a very narrow window when you're allowed to eat it. Otherwise it becomes nosar. You bring it during the day, it has to be eaten that day by the morning of the next day, and then it's nosar. After that, it cannot be eaten. And this is a big animal, and it's got 40 loaves of bread. So it's an enormous Korban. How do you go ahead and consume such an enormous Korban so quickly, the Korban Toda? The answer is you have to invite people to eat with you. And you bring this Korban, a Korban of thanksgiving. Thank you, Hashem, for helping me, for saving me from something. From what? 4 things. One of 4 things. Travel through a desert, travel through a sea, release from jail, or curing from illness. One of those 4 things is what we bring a Korban Toda for. So people ask, why bring this Korban? What happened? And you tell the story. There's a pirsum hanes. There's an expression of the story. Well, guess what? That's what the Korban Pesach is. Korban Pesach is a paradigmatic Korban Toda. And in Mitzrayim, we crossed the Midbar. We crossed the sea. We were sick, people were cured, and we got out of prison. So exactly the same 4 things. And we also have a very narrow window in which we're allowed to eat the Korban Pesach. It's a Korban Shlamim, like the Korban Toda, that you can eat it that night, and by the next morning it's nosar, same exact pattern. And of course, there's a Pirsum Enisa, there's a Sipur Hanes, there's Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. We have to tell the story. So that's what our Shulchan Aruch is, sandwiched in between Hallel. Perfect. We start Hallel, and then we have our Suda, we eat our Korban Toda. And as part of that Korban, why are you having this Suda? What's it all about? We start not just talking about how the soup is and how the meat is, but we talk about the nays. It's part of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, and then we conclude that with Hallel. So that's exactly what it is. The Korban Pesach, the Suda Shulchan Aruch, is the paradigm of Korban Toda, and therefore it's not just a regular meal, but it's part of this glorious night of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, of Chag Cherus, of that feeling, that sense of redemption. Wishing everyone a wonderful Shabbos Kodesh and a beautiful Yom Tov.